Kia ora and welcome to Writing in the Margins. Today's episode is another chat with our third guest, my friend McKenzie. McKenzie is a full-time traveler who's dipping her toes into the world of writing. But spoiler alert, she's already awesome. In our chat, we talk about routines, inspiration, self-imposed challenges, and working to a deadline, and much more. This is quite a long one, so let's jump right in.
Hello, how's it going?
It's so good. How about you?
Oh, good to see you. Thank you for
I
making the
know.
time.
Good to see you too.
Well, welcome to yet another episode of Writing in the Margins. Do you just want to start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your writing and what you do in life?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm McKenzie. I am an American. I travel full time right now, though. I'm a digital nomad. And I'm calling in right now from Madeira, Portugal. But over the next few days, I'll be traveling to Edinburgh in the UK, where I'll be spending all of August. And I am a full-time software developer. I work for a software company that makes software for arts organizations like operas, symphonies, orchestras, things like that. But I am a writer for fun right now. I've been a huge lifelong reader, and in the past few years, I've tried to kind of translate that love for reading into an interest in writing. And it turns out writing is so much harder, but I'm having fun dabbling in it anyways, for sure. So I have a Substack that I write. And then I also have a book newsletter that I run with a friend of mine. So those are kind of my two creative outlets right now.
Amazing. I already have so many questions. I feel like with all the people I talk to, when I ask them questions about how they write, how they make the time to write when they're busy bunnies, one of the things that often comes up is having a routine. And so I asked Maria how she feels about building routines when you travel a lot and how that works, and even like considering things like time zones. Like I know for a fact that I have specific times in the day where I am more productive. And yeah, so I'm very curious to know how you deal with that.
I totally don't. I am not a very routine-based person. I don't have like a regular flow that I keep to really. And I mean, I have like general work hours that I stick to. But beyond that, particularly when it comes to writing, I very much lean on writing when I have something I'm excited to write about, which in my case is travel most of the time. My newsletter is about travel and the places that I've been and the things that I've been thinking about when I've been in those places. So it's like most of the time when it's like, oh, it's time to write, it's because I'm like, oh, I have this idea that's been like churning in my head for a bit. And so somehow there's magically time in my schedule that I could sit down and spend time towards it. However, this is not, I think, the best strategy for becoming like a regular and better writer, just like writing whenever I feel like it. And the biggest evidence of that is that I went for the first like 6 months of this year and didn't publish anything for my personal newsletter at all, which is like a really big gap of time for me that I haven't had before. And so I'm trying a different strategy this month. I think that maybe when I'm traveling a bit less, like settling into a solid routine is going to be fun. But what's actually worked for me this month instead is setting like a goal or a challenge for myself. So this month I've been doing a word count challenge, which has looked like, waking up in the morning and spending time writing before work. And it's looked like writing between calls that I have on my calendar, and also like sitting in my laptop in bed once my fiance is already asleep and trying to like get my word count in before then. And I think that's worked really well for me, like having like a consistent goal to hit and somewhere to check it off and things like that. And then letting myself day by day figure out ways to squeeze it into my life.
It's what I'm hearing is also like, rather than blocking out 3 hours a day, like 3 solid hours a day, it seems like you kind of do like small bits here and there throughout the day. Is that
totally
correct?
Yeah, 100%. I have a pretty strong ADHD as well. And a side effect of that for better or for worse, is that I do pivot between tasks constantly. Like I do this in my work job. I'll be like chatting with a coworker and also working on some code and bounce over and do an email real quick. And so folding writing into that like fits well with my brain. It's like, oh, I've got some things in my brain right now. Oh, let me go jot them down somewhere. I haven't ever really fallen into a habit of saying like, this is my 2-hour writing block. I don't know what I'd do with that much time. I'm like, I don't have enough to say in one go.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's really interesting. Like, yeah, like seeing how different people organize their writing. I'm a bit of the opposite. I'm definitely like, I prefer to have a solid block of time. Because I know my brain basically only works in the morning. So I just try to make the most of it. But yeah, I can see why just splitting it down and like breaking it down in smaller bits also works for sure. The other thing that Maria was mentioning is that she works for herself, which means that she makes her own hours, which means that if she really feels like she wants to write for half an hour in the middle of the day, she can. And you're also a digital nomad, but you work for someone though, right?
Yes.
But do you think working remotely helps somehow?
Oh yeah,
Like,
for sure. I mean, even with my job, I have a normal 9 to 5. I have a boss and coworkers and all of that stuff. But the nature of my job, the clients of our company are all over the world. Like I have some clients in New Zealand, and we have clients in Europe and Canada and the US, like and all time zones in the US. And I give my company a lot of flexibility in that I'll meet at weird hours of the day. I'll take a midnight meeting. I have gotten up for 7 a.m. meetings just to accommodate all the different time zones of my coworkers and of like the people that we're working with. And so as a side effect, our company is pretty flexible with us in return. I have a lot of autonomy over setting my own meeting schedule, like what, when I'm meeting with clients and stuff like that. And really, as long as I'm generally available and I get my work done and I attend all the meetings that I need to attend, and I'm around if my boss wants to call me and chat, it doesn't really matter if like today, for example, I'm shifting my hours earlier because I have some stuff to do in the evening. So even though technically my coworkers might still be working in the evening, I will have front loaded my day a bit more, or I'll take a big break in the middle of it, or, as long as I'm putting in the work, then it's pretty much fine. And yeah, but that's why it helps also is just staying available during the day and not minding if I do get that call from my boss, like, oh, I'll stop the thought that I'm on, answer him, and then come back to it later.
That's amazing. Let me know if you're hiring.
Yeah.
One other thing that I wanted to chat about is like, what kind of writing do you do in terms of, I know you've touched on this, but do you write with the aim of publishing things, or which I know some of it is, but do you also write for yourself? How do you approach different types of writing? Do you consider all of it as writing? Like, how's your approach to that?
Yeah. So I am definitely like pretty fresh in the world of writing. And I'm kind of newer in building this habit and defining like what I'm doing this for. Like I think I'm still in the brainstorming stage of that. I think partially that's why it's so easy for me to really easily kind of bop in and out to writing. Because for me, writing is like getting any words on a page, because at this point, I'm trying to build more consistency in my output. And I don't really care what that output is, right? So like some days I'll sit down, I'll be like, I'm doing some journaling. When I started the challenge this month, I was like, you know what, I'm going to get some like fiction ideas on the page, which is something I've never written before, but it's all that I read. So I was like, how hard can it be, right? Like, let me try and just like put some stuff on paper. And so I'll have like random like scenes or ideas or thoughts for that. But I'll also sit down and write stuff like, I don't know, like, where should this character be from? What does it make sense for them to do? Like literally writing those questions out loud and just kind of like dumping things from my brain onto the page. and my most recent newsletter post, that kind of came about because I started just doing like a bunch of journaling sort of about where I was at right now. Like I was like, oh, I was on this hike today and I was thinking about this thing. And to me, all of that's fruitful writing. And it ultimately resulted in something getting published, when I'd kind of had like writer's block for a bit. So, I mean, gosh, at this point, just because I'm really trying to hit these goals this month, I will count anything as useful words. Like I was writing a really long message to somebody recommending them a bunch of shows at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And I was writing kind of these like big paragraphs about it. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, am I writing right now? And I went and I pasted it into my like word count tracker. And I was like, I got more words for the day. It counts. So I'm not picky about like what falls into the bucket. I'm just thrilled to be producing something right now. And I feel like, I kind of have like my next post brewing already, and I've done like 3 different days worth of like writing versions of it. And I'm like, it's obviously something that has teeth because I keep coming back to it and I want to say more and I want to adjust what I've said and things like that. So I think like the good stuff is rising to the top, even if I'm just like throwing a bunch of junk on the page.
Amazing. I think, yeah, that's great. I do think any writing counts as writing. If for anything, just for the morale,
For sure,
sometimes
100%.
Yeah, like sometimes you just need to like look at a page, and even if it makes 0 sense, you just look at it and you're like, well, I've made this, so it definitely counts. That's amazing. So I've actually been thinking about starting a writing challenge, mostly because I feel like I would like to, I want some accountability, and like I have this idea of picking up a fiction project that I've had for a few years, and it kind of like similar to what you're doing. I think I need just to let some words out. So where I'm just curious about like, where did you find this writing challenge, and like is it like a group of people? Is it like, are you doing it?
It's just me. It's just me being like, let me challenge myself. I got the inspiration for it because last month, so in June, my fiance and I were part of a step count challenge where we were in like this leaderboard with a bunch of other people trying to get as many steps as we could in the month with the goal of getting like at least 10,000 a day. And we went crazy over it. And we were so motivated. We were out there like walking around in the dark at night if we hadn't met our goals, like, trash talking our friends in the group chat because they were like, below us in the rankings or whatever. And it was super motivating and it was very fun. And I decided when I got to July, I was like, okay, I don't want to do the same step count challenge again, but I think I respond really well to this sort of, competitive, like, trying to set like a benchmark for yourself type of thing. Yeah. And so the other thing I had in my mind was, have you ever done National Novel Writing Month before, NaNoWriMo?
I think I tried once in my life and gave up immediately, but I know what it is and I think it's great. And I have so much respect for people who actually do it.
Totally. I did it when I was a teenager, when I had no responsibilities, and it was great and it was a lot of fun. And I'm sure that lives somewhere on some computer, whatever my output was then. But the idea is like do 40,000 words in a month, which is like a big amount of words. It's the size of a novella if you're just writing towards one project. And I basically said like, I want to do, that seems like a good structure, right? Like that's like a challenging word count, and it would be interesting to try and like meet that for a month. And I also found this, do you know the platform Notion? It's like a
I live there. That's like my entire life, isn't there?
So basically I just like Googled, or I don't remember how I came across it, but it was somebody's NaNoWriMo Notion template. And it was just laid out in a way that I found very satisfying. Basically, it's just a calendar view in Notion with a document each day and like the number of words that you've done. And then there's like another view where it like sums it up. And, when you write, it'll tell you how many words you have left and if you've met the goal and like adds it all up for you and stuff like that. And it's just been a really satisfying like visual interface, instead of having this like one unwieldy Word document where I'm tracking how much I work each day. It's kind of like each day I have like a blank piece of paper in front of me and I get to start and I just put anything I want in there to meet what I want to do. And definitely the first half of the month, I was geared way more towards fiction and this kind of project that I've been playing around with, which is super fun. And in the latter half of the month, I focused way more on my newsletter and that writing because I feel like I kind of got the creative juices flowing for that again. So yeah, it's been good.
Amazing. There's nothing like free writing sometimes.
Totally.
And also not caring too much. Like
Yeah,
it feels like have you ever done, well, I guess you are kind of doing it, but I guess intentional writing practice, which is basically it's a concept that I first came across from an author called Natalie Goldberg. She has a whole bunch of books that are amazing on writing.
okay.
And I just got some prompt cards from her,
Ooh.
which is basically it's just like a deck of cards, and every card has a little writing prompt.
Yeah.
And basically one thing, I mean, there's heaps of writing tips and tricks in her books, but one is basically so writing practice is pretty much just writing about anything. It's kind of what you're doing is
Yeah.
just writing about anything without caring what comes out until something comes out.
Sure.
So you will sit there and just write, I'm writing, I'm sitting here, I'm drinking my tea, I'm thinking about this, and I'm wearing a sweater, like literally whatever comes to mind. And
Totally.
you keep going until something unlocks and something else comes out. And it's all about the practice, it's all about consistency, and it really works. I've done a
Totally.
heaps like more consistent with writing, especially with fiction. It really helps your mind wander and like
Yeah.
really unlocks things. So yeah, but it sounds like, I mean, this is like specifically like, okay, I'm doing writing practice, but
Right.
it sounds very like similar to what you're
Totally.
doing.
And I've
Just
never
like
really used prompts before either, but that does sound like a fun way to kind of like get things going in your brain. Because I definitely have days where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I am here, I am writing, I don't know what to say, and that's what the whole page looks like. But
yeah, totally. But it doesn't matter. It's still writing. It's yeah.
true.
Cool. So what I'm hearing here is that you do like a challenge, you do like a goal, which I relate to absolutely. It's very satisfying, like taking all those boxes. And then I'm hearing kind of like writing whenever you feel like it, as in like maybe whenever like something is exciting to you and like finding 20 minutes to just like let it out, which makes sense. And yeah, I'm very I'm just interested about not necessarily having a routine, because like it's not, no, it's interesting. I remember when I mean I don't know if I ever told you this, for a few months Luke and I did not have a house, and we literally
Right.
moved for like an insane amount of time in a few months, and not having routines really messed me up, especially because I was trying to write a lot in that time. And I know it for me, like I know exactly when is the best time in the day to write and what situation I should put myself in
Right.
to actually produce something. So not having a base, or like not having stability, or just not having a desk sometimes was really challenging. So I'm always interested when like people are like, it doesn't matter, I just like wherever. I'm like, wow, right.
Yeah.
Good. Amazing. So yeah, and so you're basically like not only you have a full-time job, but you also travel all the time, and you still make it happen, which is great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and other months I don't touch it for 6 months and then come back to it, and you know what I mean? It's like a big mixing pot. I would love to have it be a bigger part of my life, and I feel like I'm on the journey of that. But it's definitely, because it's not my source of income or something, you know, I don't have people who will yell at me if I don't publish my newsletter or anything like that. It's definitely something that like I have to make the time to do if I want it to be a part of my life. And I sometimes do and I sometimes don't.
Yeah, which is very fair. I think it is important. Like, I think you can force it to a certain extent. Like, you can try and you can show up every day and write 3 words a day if you want, but you need to be in a, to me at least, you need to be in a certain space to produce something that is that has some meaning or it's decent to read, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah, and it's okay to go through, you know, phases where nothing is coming out. That's fine.
True.
Sometimes. Yeah. How did you get into writing?
Definitely from reading. I mean, I read a lot. That's like a huge part of my life and how I spend my time. I really, it was that I was in the very first phase of my life where I started traveling full time, which was in 2020. My best friend and I, during the pandemic, started living in a different city in the US every month. And we were road tripping around the country and doing it together. And it was the best year of my life. Sorry to my future husband, but I already had the best year of my life, and it was with Carolyn. And it it was really like just us, because the world was still locked down. Everybody was isolating so much still. It was such a weird time. And so I just got so much time to like be alone with my brain. You know what I mean? And we would just have these huge swaths of time where we were just like road tripping. I mean, we drove across, my very first thing I ever wrote was about driving across Texas, which Texas is ginormous. Like, it took us 2 full days to drive across the entirety of it to get from New Orleans in the US to Santa Fe in New Mexico. And I just think when you don't have like any other external stimulus or any distractions or anything to do, and eventually you do run out of things to talk about because there's not much to talk about the landscape of Texas, your brain just fills the space and starts being really generative. You know what I mean? Like, I kept looking at things and I was reading these really gorgeous I was reading some really beautiful stuff at the time too about that same landscape that I was in. I was reading Joan Didion's South and West, which, you know, of course, I sat there, I was reading Joan Didion, and I was like, I could do that, right? No, she's very talented. I can't do that. But I did. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the inspiration. I was like, oh my gosh, she's writing about this exact place that I'm in right now. And like, it's so gorgeous. And like, so your brain starts doing like, can I observe things in the same way? Like, what if I wrote down these things that I'm noticing and stuff? And that's kind of what my whole first year of writing was just writing and documenting kind of the journey that we were on during that period of time. I didn't write something for every place we went, but I think I had like maybe 6 different essays about that period of life, which I'm so glad I wrote it down, because I wrote down and remembered all of this really granular detail, you know, that like, I don't think I'd remember right now if that wasn't like written down on paper somewhere. So that's how it started, was just like, I was like, I feel like I was so disconnected from everybody else in my life. You know, everybody was far away. And so I was like, I'm going to start writing it down for them. And then a friend of mine had graciously agreed to edit my work. And he is a mean editor. He's a mean man. He spares no punches. He is a phenomenally talented writer in his own right. You know, has done it professionally as a career for a long time. And he'll just tell me, this is bad, this is good, you know, like, this is, you need to not be lazy here. Like, I mean, he just is very, very honest and has like really impeccable taste as well. And he's laid eyes on pretty much everything I've written at this point. I was actually working on something earlier this year that he read, and he was like, this is the worst thing that I've ever read by you. And it was, you know what I mean? It wasn't that he was just like being rude. Like, I didn't have a clear sense of the point I was trying to make. Like, I was kind of getting all over the place. I really just wanted to put like a bunch of imagery on the page, and like, I didn't have like any kind of why, you know what I mean? Like, it was true. but anyways, he's really helped me think of my writing as something that like I do have to labor at, and it's something that in order for it to be good, I can't just rely on like my instincts. You know what I mean? Like I can't just be like, I'm putting stuff on the page and whatever I put down on the page is great. It's more like I put stuff on the page and some of it needs to be chucked and some of it needs to be brought out more. And, like, I don't know, I just feel like he's taught me a lot about like how to self-edit more and how to like hold myself to a higher standard in terms of what I produce, which I think has been really useful in taking me out of just like, I'm just journaling into like, I'm producing something that I actually am interested in sending out to the world. So yeah, that's kind of the journey that I was on.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, man, there's nothing like a harsh editor sometimes.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience. Well, a similar experience when I took my first creative writing paper. I did a paper at Vic Q&A here. And that was the first time that I workshopped my own work and other people's work. And it's really confronting to have someone, like we would always work in a way, like we did the sandwich way where you say something you like and then something you're not sure about and then something you like. But it's interesting to hear, just to hear someone else's opinion on your work, because I had been writing for years at that point, but I had never shared in that way.
Totally.
So it's like, okay. And it's also interesting to like the other way around. So when you have to edit someone else's work, and sometimes like, I love everything. And it's the sandwich method is like, I don't have anything bad to put in the middle. And sometimes I'm like, I don't have anything good to say.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's definitely it's a good exercise for sure.
Totally.
The last thing that I would like to mention that we haven't talked about is our writing dates.
Yes.
That's like kind of what we do. Like, like you are one of the people that I write with, and you did mention recently that our writing dates really helped you produce something. So yeah, do you want to like chat a little bit about?
Yeah. So I mean, because I travel full time, there's a lot of people in my life that I don't get to see as often as I want to, you included, and Anna included, and Maria included. And so I've started setting up these kind of like virtual co-working sessions with my friends. So I have like one friend group where we all used to live in Washington, D.C., and we'll hop on periodically and do just like a batch of virtual co-working together, which is mostly chatting, but like sometimes we'll send an email or two. But it's really fun, because we all live pretty spread out now. And then I messaged, when I knew that I was like, I want to start investing more time into writing in my life, I was like, I feel like I need people around me to help encourage this because I'm clearly having a hard time getting it off the ground by myself. So I reached out to you because I know that you are a very talented and consistent writer. And I reached out to Maria because I know that Maria has a bunch of cool writing projects going on. And I miss Maria and want to hang out with her more. And I reached out to my friend Anna, who's not been able to join as much because she has a much more chaotic work schedule. She's kind of like a full-time freelance artist, but I know that she and I have talked a lot about having writing aspirations and wanting to invest more time in it. And so, we just kind of have this standing call that we've canceled it plenty, but we've also joined it plenty as well. It's just an hour and a half that somehow works for our 400 different time zones, where the whole idea is that, chit chat, check in, and then we do a couple of Pomodoros, just a couple of like work blasts, where we're just supposed to put our heads down and write for a bit. And I think they're so fun. I don't think it's like my most productive writing sessions that I do, just because I do want to chit chat the whole time, but that's okay. Because it also just like, it's fun feeling like, oh, I'm part of a group of people that writes, you know what I mean? Like it helps feed into, I guess, like the identity of like someone who writes. And it is cool to like sit there and be like, yes, like I did work on this thing that I said I was going to work on. Like it's like getting a car unstuck from the mud, right? Like at the very least, you have to put some effort towards it because you just told your friends, I'm putting effort towards this for the next 25 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think yes, I agree to all of these things. And I think for me it's also, yeah, just the accountability of having to show up. And yeah, and definitely being part of a writing group. Like I've had a bunch of writing groups throughout the years, but this is definitely the most consistent and the one that like I get the most excited about. Because I think everyone cares.
Yeah.
It's always been me trying to organize and drag people in groups, and then like we would
Totally.
last and then it would just dissipate. So I really appreciate how much everyone cares in this one. And yeah, sometimes, it doesn't always go ahead, but fair
Yeah.
enough. But I think, yeah, we've been pretty good. And yeah, I've
Yeah.
definitely been practicing heaps during our sessions.
Totally.
Yeah, it's been super helpful and super fun. It's always, yeah,
It's
it's
been
definitely
super fun.
also maybe not the most productive time, but it's also a good occasion to catch up.
For sure. And I love hearing what everybody's working on too.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I think that's very fun as well. Be like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, like everybody has these very different projects going on or different ideas and things like that.
Great. What a good chat.
Yes, it's so good to see you.
Yes, I love talking about writing with other writers. Thank you again.
Yes, this was so much